So recently, I've seen a lot of people complain about how hard Aether tools are to find in Modern Warfare Zombies. Everyone knows that Pack-a-Punch machines are everywhere to upgrade your guns, but Aether tools seem so rare, especially the legendary ones. But most of you probably know that if you defeat the Red Worm boss in Modern Warfare Zombies, then you have a chance to get the legendary Aether tool schematic, which allows you to infinitely craft it. But with how hard that boss is, you practically need to fight him with at least a legendary fully upgraded weapon. But how can you do that if you have to beat him to get the legendary Aether tool schematic? Well, the answer is that you have to find one, and if you don't know where to look, these things can be extremely rare. That's why in this video, I'm going to be covering all the best places to find high rarity Aether tools. The first way is to search for these little Aether orbs around the map. Now these things are kind of rare, but if you just drive around for a bit, you can usually spot them floating around. There's a few spots where they spawn more often, like in this stadium in the tier 2 zone, or even in a lot of the open fields in the tier 3 zone. Now, I'm not entirely sure on this, but it would make sense that destroying the orbs in the tier 3 zone would have a higher chance of dropping a better Aether tool than in the tier 2 zone. When you eventually find one of these, just shoot at it a lot until it eventually explodes, and it has a guaranteed chance of dropping an Aether tool. Now, I will admit that the chances of getting a legendary or even an epic Aether tool from these aren't very high, but if you just find one floating around and you need an Aether tool anyway, it's worth it to shoot it. This is because they drop things like points, weapons, and a lot of random stuff. However, because you can't really rely on these to drop you good Aether tools, another method of getting high rarity ones is grinding out contracts in the tier 3 zone. Now, the contracts you should be looking for when doing this is the deliver cargo ones, bounties, and even spore controls, because those are generally the fastest and easiest ones to complete. When you complete any contract in the tier 3 zone, you have a chance to get a legendary or even epic Aether tool. Now, just like the Aether orbs, your chances aren't the best here, but they also drop things like points and can even drop you an epic Aether tool schematic. Now, that schematic is a really rare drop, but if you're just completing contracts in the tier 3 zone while looking for a regular Aether tool, then chances are you probably will find the schematic. Another thing you can do in the tier 3 zone that basically nobody knows about is come to this grave. This grave is right here on the map, and usually a Pack-a-Punch machine spawns next to it. Now, when you run up to the grave, you'll probably notice that you can interact with it to pay respects. Now, when you do this, you'll hear a laughing sound and notice that your gun has actually become a common rarity, which is the exact opposite of what we're trying to do. But when you wait a little bit, you'll notice that a reward rift will spawn on top of the grave, and it has a chance of spawning any type of rarity Aether tool or even an Ethereum crystal. But going to this grave and doing this is a gamble, because whatever rarity of gun you put in has a chance to just give you an uncommon Aether tool back for your high rarity weapon. But then again, it could give you an epic or even legendary Aether tool alongside an Ethereum crystal. Now, just like I said about the Aether orbs in the higher tier zones, putting in a higher rarity weapon probably gives you a better chance of getting a better Aether tool. But anyway, the next way you can get high rarity Aether tools is by fighting bosses. Now, bosses like the Stormcaller, who spawn in the Storm, and Mega Abominations, which are pretty common in the tier 3 zone, both drop epic and even legendary Aether tools. You can kill these bosses super easily, and especially the Mega Abominations, by getting turret circuits or buying a Juggernaut at a tier 3 buy station for 10,000 points. They can also drop things like points, wonder weapons, and a bunch of other good loot. Now, the last method, and most certainly not least, is also in the tier 3 zone and is, from my experience, the absolute best way to find high rarity Aether tools. Now, I've done this method around 5 times and got a legendary Aether tool 4 out of those 5 times, which means this method almost guarantees you one. What you have to do is look on your map for one of these infested strongholds, specifically in the tier 3 zone. Now, just to test the odds, right now I'm going to jump into a game and clear one of these and see what I get. Now, here we are actually in game, and as I'm running up on one of these infested strongholds, I just wanted to mention real quick that even if you don't get what you want on the first time of completing one of these, you just have to wait around 5 minutes and it'll respawn. So here we are just clearing out a lot of these spores, and in the tier 3 zone, I will mention that these are actually pretty hard to clear out simply because of the number of zombies that spawn. So you should go in with at least a decent gun and make sure to take your time when clearing these out. Also, at least 2 bosses are guaranteed to spawn at these, and most times a lot more, so that's another reason that you want to be prepared. And here we just shot the last orb of the entire infested stronghold, and let's see what kind of loot we get. And just like that, in my second crate of the entire stronghold, I found an epic Aether tool and also a rare Aether tool on top of that. And in the rest of the crates, I just found things like perks and lethals, so definitely not the best stronghold where I didn't get a legendary Aether tool like I usually do, but an epic Aether tool is pretty good. Anyway, now you know basically every way you can find Aether tools in Modern Warfare Zombies. So that is going to do it for this video, and if you enjoyed, please be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.